Morgan Freeman's life story is not one built on instant recognition or early privilege, but on patience, persistence, and a steady belief in purpose even when the path was unclear. Born in 1937 in Mississippi during a deeply divided era, he grew up in a world shaped by segregation, uncertainty, and limited opportunity. Yet within those conditions, he developed a quiet awareness of people, emotion, and storytelling that would later become the heart of his craft. Acting was not an immediate destination for him, but a gradual discovery shaped through school performances, personal exploration, and years of uncertainty. Before fame ever arrived, he experienced long periods of struggle, small roles, and constant waiting, moments that tested both his resolve and his identity. What makes his journey powerful is not just success, but the time it took to reach it. His story reflects endurance over speed, depth over visibility, and the belief that true artistic growth often happens in silence before the world notices. Early life in a divided world. Morgan Freeman was born in 1937 in Mississippi, into a world that offered very little certainty and even fewer opportunities. His childhood unfolded against the backdrop of segregation and economic hardship, where stability was rare and expectations were often limited by circumstance. He moved frequently, living with relatives as his parents searched for work, learning early that life could shift without warning. These constant changes shaped him into a quiet observer. He watched people closely, studied their emotions, and listened more than he spoke. At the time, it was simply a way to understand a confusing world, but in hindsight, it became the foundation of his acting craft. There was no clear path toward the arts, no encouragement pointing him toward a stage or a camera. Dreams like acting felt distant, almost impractical, yet something stayed with him, a quiet pull he couldn't fully explain. Even in moments when survival seemed more urgent than ambition, that inner voice remained. It didn't demand attention, but it refused to disappear. That quiet persistence would become one of the defining traits of his life, long before anyone outside his circle knew his name. Discovering a voice without a platform. Freeman's first connection to acting came through school, where he experienced something new: freedom. On stage, even in small productions, he could step outside his circumstances and explore different identities. It wasn't fame or recognition that drew him in. It was the feeling of being seen, even if only for a moment. But reality had its own demands. Opportunities were limited, and practical choices often outweighed creative ones. After finishing school, he joined the Air Force, believing it might offer direction or stability. For a time, he followed that path, fulfilling expectations and responsibilities. Yet something felt incomplete. The structure of military life couldn't silence the creative instinct that had taken root in him. Eventually, he made a difficult decision: to leave that path behind and pursue acting without guarantees. It wasn't a dramatic leap into success, but a quiet, uncertain step into the unknown. There were no promises waiting for him, no clear roadmap, just a belief, fragile but persistent, that he needed to try. That decision marked the beginning of a long journey defined not by immediate results, but by endurance and a willingness to keep going even when progress felt invisible. Years of struggle and persistence. The early years of Freeman's acting career were marked by struggle. He took on small roles, worked in theater, and accepted jobs that barely covered living expenses. These weren't glamorous beginnings, and they didn't offer the recognition he had once imagined. Instead, they demanded patience. Casting opportunities were inconsistent, and when they came, they often carried limitations. He was frequently overlooked or placed into narrow roles that didn't reflect the full range of his abilities. For many, this might have been the point to reconsider everything. But Freeman approached it differently. He focused on the work itself, refining his craft and learning from every role, no matter how small. There was a quiet resilience in the way he moved forward. He didn't chase attention, he built skill. Still, the uncertainty lingered. There were moments when the future felt unclear, when the gap between effort and reward seemed too wide. Yet he continued, not out of stubbornness alone, but because acting had become essential to who he was. It wasn't just a career choice anymore. It was the one place where he felt fully aligned with himself, finding footing in an unpredictable industry. Freeman's gradual rise didn't come through a single breakthrough moment. Instead, it unfolded slowly. Television roles and stage performances began to bring him modest recognition. One of his early visible roles came through children's programming, which gave him exposure but not the level of success he had hoped for. Even then, financial stability remained uncertain, His personal life reflected the pressures of his career, long hours, limited income, and the emotional toll of constant striving. Yet within this period, something important was taking shape. Freeman was developing a presence that audiences couldn't ignore. His voice, his timing, and his ability to bring depth to characters began to stand out. He didn't fit into conventional expectations, but that difference became his strength. Directors and audiences slowly started to notice. It wasn't immediate validation, but it was a shift. The industry hadn't fully embraced him yet, but the door was beginning to open. What mattered most was that he had stayed long enough to reach that point, proving that persistence could create opportunities even when they seemed out of reach. Recognition that took decades. True recognition for Freeman came later than it does for most actors. By the time he began receiving major roles and critical acclaim, he was already well into his career. Films like Driving Miss Daisy, Glory, and Lean on Me introduced him to wider audiences, showcasing the depth and authenticity he had spent years developing. To the public, it may have looked like a sudden rise, but behind that moment were decades of effort, rejection, and quiet perseverance. His success challenged a common narrative in the entertainment industry, that achievement must come early to matter. Freeman's journey showed otherwise. He didn't arrive quickly, but when he did, he brought with him a level of experience that gave his performances a unique weight. His roles carried a sense of lived reality, shaped by everything he had endured along the way. This late recognition was both rewarding and complex. It validated his dedication, but it also highlighted how long he had been overlooked. Still, he embraced the moment with humility, focusing not on what had been delayed, but on what he could now contribute. The weight of expectations. As Freeman's career flourished, new challenges emerged. Success brought visibility, and visibility brought expectations. Audiences began to associate him with wisdom, authority, and calm strength. His voice became iconic, often chosen to narrate stories that required depth and credibility. While this recognition was a testament to his talent, it also created a certain pressure. People saw him as a symbol rather than an individual. They admired his composure, but rarely questioned what it took to maintain it. This shift can be subtle but significant. When someone becomes an icon, their humanity can become less visible. Freeman navigated this space carefully, continuing to deliver performances that resonated while maintaining a grounded approach to his life. He didn't chase the image that others projected onto him. Instead, he focused on staying true to himself and his craft. The balance wasn't always easy, but it reflected the same resilience that had carried him through earlier years. Success didn't erase the challenges, it simply changed their form. Personal life and quiet reflection. Behind the public image, Freeman's personal life carried its own complexities. Like many people, he experienced relationships that evolved over time, moments of change, and periods of reflection. The demands of his career often required long stretches away from home, creating distance that could be difficult to navigate. Yet through it all, he maintained a sense of perspective. He understood that life isn't defined solely by professional achievements. Over the years, he developed a quieter approach to living, valuing moments of stillness and reflection. His journey wasn't about constant motion, but about understanding what truly mattered. This perspective became more pronounced as he grew older. The pace of life slowed, allowing space to look back on the path he had traveled. It wasn't about regret or celebration alone, but about recognition, acknowledging both the struggles and the successes as parts of a larger story. Late success and its unique perspective. Freeman's rise later in life gave him a perspective that differs from many of his peers. He experienced both the uncertainty of long struggle and the stability of eventual success. This combination shaped how he approached his work and his life. He didn't take opportunities for granted, nor did he define himself solely by them. Instead, he viewed success as one part of a broader journey. There's a particular understanding that comes from achieving goals after years of waiting. It brings appreciation but also awareness, an understanding of how timing can influence everything. Freeman's career reflects this balance. He embraced his achievements while remaining grounded in the reality that they didn't come easily. This perspective added depth not only to his performances but to his outlook on life. It's a reminder that success isn't always about speed. Sometimes, it's about endurance and the ability to keep moving forward, even when progress feels slow. The meaning of legacy. As Freeman entered his later years, the idea of legacy became more prominent. His work had already left a lasting impact on audiences around the world. His voice, his performances, and his presence had become part of cultural memory. But legacy, for him, wasn't just about recognition. It was about contribution, what he had added to the world through his craft. He understood that his journey could inspire others, particularly those who felt overlooked or underestimated. His story showed that timelines are not fixed, and that persistence can lead to meaningful outcomes. Legacy, in this sense, became less about fame and more about influence. It was about opening doors, challenging assumptions, and demonstrating that success can take many forms. Freeman's life reflects this idea, offering a narrative that values patience and resilience as much as talent. A story of endurance and quiet strength. Today, Morgan Freeman stands as a figure of quiet strength, shaped by decades of experience. His journey is not defined by a single moment, but by a series of choices, challenges, and steady progress. He didn't follow a straightforward path, and that's what makes his story resonate. It speaks to the reality that life often unfolds in unexpected ways. His achievements are significant, but they are only part of the picture. What stands out just as much is his ability to continue, to adapt, and to remain committed to his craft despite obstacles. In the end, his story is less about hardship and more about endurance. It's about the power of staying true to something meaningful, even when the outcome is uncertain. And that is what gives his journey its lasting impact. A reminder that perseverance, carried quietly over time, can shape something truly remarkable. Conclusion. A legacy, built on patience and enduring strength. 200 words. Morgan Freeman's journey stands as a powerful reminder that greatness is not defined by how quickly success arrives, but by how steadily a person continues despite delay, rejection, and uncertainty. His life moved through long periods of struggle, from early challenges in a divided society to years of small, uncertain acting roles where recognition was far away. Yet through every stage, he remained committed to his craft, refining his voice, presence, and understanding of human emotion. When success finally came, it did not feel sudden. It felt earned, shaped by decades of quiet persistence. What makes Freeman's legacy truly meaningful is not only his body of work, but the patience and resilience behind it. He represents a rare kind of success story in which time becomes a teacher rather than an obstacle. Even as he became a globally respected actor and voice of authority, he carried the humility of someone who understands struggle deeply. His life reminds us that timing does not define worth, and that steady effort can eventually transform even the longest journeys into something extraordinary. In the end, Morgan Freeman's story is not just about acting. It is about endurance, growth, and the quiet strength required to keep believing when recognition feels distant, proving that lasting success is built one patient step at a time.